Boys will learn respect for women.
That's the other thing, Boys will learn respect for women under Labour, and this is reality star Georgia Harrison. She's going to crack her misogyny. Sir Keir Starmer, if you've heard of him, Emily Attack and Yvette Cooper, they've all got together in an unlikely kind of like Simon Cowell putting together one of those unlikely bands during X Factor. Yeah. And they're all saying that, you know, we need to solve misogyny, you need to call out friends who are being misogynistic, catcalling is terrible, and all this kind of vague. I'm sure it's all very...
No, this is not vague at all. They're saying they want it taught in schools. That's not vague. They want to make that part of the educational...
I mean, I say vague, I mean ineffective.
I have a view about this, because I have a 15-year-old son who's experienced a certain amount of these kind of lessons at school, and just observationally and anecdotally, what it seems to me is that the overwhelming majority of boys at school now are well aware that misogyny is wrong, well aware that women deserve a certain amount of respect. There's a tiny minority who are not aware of it. Yeah, there are a tiny minority who are the same ones who have always been oblivious to this, and are exactly the ones who will not be affected by these interventions. So you just get a bigger and bigger gulf between the vast majority of men who just feel ever more shame and paralysis when confronted with women, and not sure if it's okay to talk to them or if it's okay to touch them without permission at every stage, and then like a tiny handful who will still just go ahead and behave like...
Well, I personally have I've got a son as well, 13-year-old, and daughters and whatever, and I've always... This is a policy I'm really happy to hear about, because I've been saying this on the show for the last year. Get to them early, get to them before they're 15, get to them when they're still 9, 10, point out these things, and point out things like catcalling. They're talking about bringing in, making people aware of things like domestic abuse and whatnot, and I think it will make a difference. I do think that you're right. There is also this idea that boys might get scared or not know where the boundaries are, and that's fine, and perhaps that could be part of something they talk about later on at that age, 14, 15. But I do think this is a problem within our society, these various things, and I do think they need to be dealt with earlier the better, to at least show them that these are morally wrong.
But isn't it interesting that your kids really liked Andrew Tate when he came in the studio? He said, my kids are big fans. Isn't that because men have been so demonised that even your sons, you know, you've been brought up in a sort of feminist environment, are saying we love Andrew Tate?
No, it's because my son's an idiot.
I mean, it's not always easy to, you know, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's hardwired in, but which ones are idiots and which ones are not. But I do think traditionally the structures that have protected women from the worst elements of toxic masculinity have been other men who have come together and gone, oi, mate, stop that, cut that out. You're being and using a strong language. And I'm just a little bit concerned that we are kind of weakening men in those situations so that the toxic ones remain... Do you know what I mean?
But you're putting it far too much.
I'm sure it's far too...
Men and boys are hated in Western culture. Everyone knows this.